Hey everybody, it's Kate 420 and I'm back with another video. Another story that happened tragedy recently in Russia. But medical malpractice is one of the things that scares me probably the most because doctors and surgeons get paid the money that they get paid and go to school for the amount of years so they don't make mistakes. The reasons we pay our Burger King Whopper makers minimum wage is because we understand they're going to make mistakes. Surgeons should not make mistakes. um, so this young woman went in for a routine ovarian surgery and was literally embalmed alive. Watch. Maybe. Of course. Here we go. Every time I press record, things slow down so much. There we go. Oh, God. 14 hours. So, Ekaterina had went in for the surgery on her ovaries, and what she had been, what was supposed to be happening is she was supposed to be given a saline drip, um, which what she was given was called formalin. And what formalin is usually used for is to keep bodies from decomposing. Why anyone would think that a surgeon would prescribe formalin for a living patient is what really, as an ex nurse, I haven't been a nurse in years, but as an ex nurse, I wonder why, what would have caused a nurse to believe that, because that's who would have got this medicine and administered it, was a nurse, why any doctor would prescribe um, basically formaldehyde, what preserves a dead body, for a living patient. I mean, like, do we not ask questions anymore in this country, or well, in any country, in the medical field, are we too proud to ask questions like, "Hey, doc, this doesn't seem right." Her mother sat with her for 14 hours while her body literally decomposed from the inside. And doctors actually lied to her mother and tried to hide their mistake at first, and her mother overheard a conversation, and basically said, "This is straight murder." They were trying to figure out how to tell me, but it says she was attached to life support. Her heart stopped beating several times. But her mother watched her suffer, and so did they for 14 hours. Let's see here. Hang on, I'm just trying to see if we can. All right. I wanted to play that video. There's her husband, her husband Igor. But 14 hours she was living with this. It says she was rushed to intensive care overnight as her condition deteriorated. A medical mistake took place. She's in a coma now. It says her heart, lungs, and liver stopped working. She's attached to an artificial lung ventilator. She was moved to a regional clinic where Galina and Igor were told about the appalling blunder. So think about that. They had no idea what was wrong with her. Medics used 52 drugs in a desperate attempt to try to save this woman. She was then flown to a Moscow hospital, but tragically died. She was buried on April 7th. A criminal investigation is underway. That is something absolutely horrifying to me. The thought of that, just the thought of it disgusts me. Here she is again, Ekaterina. She's a very beautiful girl. 27 years old, went in for a regular ovarian surgery, and according to doctors, they mixed up a nurse right here. They put her on a saline drip, which somehow she was given a formalin drip. It can also be used as a disinfectant, formalin kind of says, but basically it's used to prevent dead bodies from decomposing. It's formaldehyde. We all know what formaldehyde is, and we all know how dangerous it is, and her body was pumped full of it. Full of formaldehyde. For 14 hours, she suffered with that inside her body. Um, I can't imagine what type of pain that woman was going through. But I can say that I know it's formaldehyde is used in situations for as a drug part, or I think it might be used as like they dip cigarettes in it or something like that. But all I know is that it causes like PCP like effects. So this is a funeral director, guys. Funeral director explaining what basically she was embalmed alive means. The chemical they used was stronger. You hear me? Stronger than what a funeral director uses. The hospital pumped stuff in a living woman that was meant for someone who was dead, but that was even stronger than funeral directors would use on someone that was dead. And for 14 hours, she suffered with it alive in her body. All right. So formalin is exact. Here we go. This is where I want to talk about. What the funeral director says. Okay. So it says local reports suggest that a nurse simply washed the surgical site with formalin instead of saline. The details are grisly, but Fedivia was complaining that she was dying as her organs failed. Her mother said she lived with the solution for 14 hours. Formalin. So basically, instead of washing the site, I'm sure the doctor did write a prescription for formalin then, but instead of writing it for formalin to wash the site with, he just wrote it for formalin, and the pharmacy at the hospital probably produced the most common form of it, which is used for dead bodies in IV form. So, wow. It says formalin is 40%. It's almost half formaldehyde. In a sixth generation funeral director, Caleb White says, oh, it's stronger than anything embalmers use. If she had a bag, it says, oops, wait, come on, I didn't go up. I love when I'm trying to read something and it just hops around. Here we go. It's stronger than anything. If she had a bag, and if the entire IV bag was injected into her system, I just don't know how she lived for 14 hours. I've never been around formalin. I don't even know how caustic it is. He knows that this particular hospital seemed to have formalin on hand to sanitize their instruments. Wow. What exactly is embalming? Most people think of it as preservation of the dead, of dead bodies. But is that an accurate definition, and how long does embalming last? I think funeral directors would say that the primary purpose of embalming is restoration, and the secondary purpose is preservation. You want to have a body look presentable for viewing at the funeral, but you're not going to create a specimen that can be viewed 50 years from now in some anatomical facility. So preservation is second in order of importance. The basic I oh, Wrong one. That said, if a body is buried in a dry place, I think you could dig up a lot of embalmed bodies, and as long as they were embalmed well, they are still going to be recognizable 50, 60, 70 years later. Of course, there are a lot of other factors at play. If there's any water that's gotten into the vault or basket, the decomposition is going to be exponentially increased. Roughly speaking, what are the steps of embalming? We tend to use the right carotid artery, a major artery in the side of your neck. You make an incision. You inject it with embalming fluid. The injection pushes out the blood and pushes in the embalming fluid, distributing it throughout the body via the arteries. Then there are parts of the body that aren't reached through the arterial system, and that's the abdominal area. So we inject the abdominal area with a trocar, which is like a large syringe. We stick it into the body and pump very strong embalming fluid into the abdomen directly, and that's how it gets into the part that's not reached by the arteries. So you don't need to remove organs. No, we're not removing organs. The fluid we use in the trocar is very strong and for the most part is able to preserve the entire abdomen and chest. The chemical formaldehyde is used. This is used to preserve bodies. What does it do exactly? And it says, you could say it tears apart the constructs of your tissue. Okay, hang on. Formaldehyde changes the tissue on a molecular level so that the bacteria can't feed on tissue. You could say it tears apart the constructs of your tissue. The embalming fluid that we use is a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. It has formaldehyde, but it has disinfectants. So not only does it render the tissue unable to be fed on by bacteria, but it also kills bacteria. And it says, what about formalin given to the Russian patient? Hold on. What's the difference? Formalin is formaldehyde dissolved in water. Formalin is 40% formaldehyde, so it's stronger than anything funeral directors use. And then it says at that point, basically they use 1 to 2%. This is 40. They use 1 to 2%. This is 40. The stomach gets about 20% normally. She got 40. Think about that. Everything in her body was double what the maximum they used in a dead person. Okay, so I'm thinking that maybe the entire bag was not injected into her system, but then again, it's not like a gunshot wound where we have a bunch of examples and things that we can reference to know what really happened. It's obviously unethical to try to embalm someone alive, so we have no other examples. You said that you don't know how she could have lived for 14 hours. In general, how long does embalming take, and how do you know when the process is finished? There's a lot of relativity, but embalming can take anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. As I mentioned, the fluid is a conglomeration of things. One of them a coloring agent, so that part of the skin is receiving embalming fluid changes color, and that's how you know it's working. You can make the skin darker or lighter or whatever you want. There's a hardening effect as well. You can't feel around the body and the parts that receive the fluid, or you can feel that the parts that receive the fluid will be harder than parts that didn't. Speaking of harsh chemicals, do embalmers worried about being exposed to them? And it just says OSHA standards has a hand to play in the way that prep rooms are designed. There's a certain amount of airflow, fans, and so on. For me, my nose starts to run and my throat feels like it's burning, my eyes watering, and that's when I'm wearing a gown. You'll report an incident in your own records if it's serious, but it's very rare. People understandably fear being buried alive. On the other side, do you fear starting to embalm someone only to find out they're still alive? Wow, I guess that's a good question, right? I can say that that's as someone who was in medical field that I definitely would not have wanted to work in the morgue. That would be like a big fear for me. Somebody that gets shipped to the morgue only to find out they're alive. It happens all the time, believe it or not. Says yes, that's a legitimate fear. I'm always a bit more observant when things start out, but I just want to make sure, so I'll wait a minute after I make the first decision to make sure there are no signs of life. When somebody dies at the hospital, there's pretty much a 100% guarantee that they're dead. You have heart monitors, oxygen monitors, so on. But a lot of people are choosing to die at home under hospice, and that changes things. I've never encountered a living body, but I don't know a funeral director who has. But always, I worry in the back of my head that would be incredibly traumatic. And then it just says some questions about embalming. So anyway, basically now you have some idea of what this poor woman went through. Her family's calling it, murder, straight out murder, which it is. But the bottom line is who's responsible? The doctor, the nurse that attached it to her, the hospital who, employs this surgeon and nurses. It's going to be a criminal investigation, but the bottom line is who do you think they're going to find, you know, criminally responsible for this? And that's what's sad, is that somebody deserves to be charged criminally, but I feel that person will get found not guilty of intent. So therefore, it'll be a lesser charge. It'll be a manslaughter charge or something like that, so that the person, which whoever may be charged out of all this, it won't be what they deserve. So I just want to say, to the family, you're I've said a prayer, and I'm very sorry that you had to watch that, and I'm very sorry that such a beautiful young woman had to go through such a terrible tragedy that could have been prevented. Catch y'all later.